Hi folks, welcome to another edition of the Honest Hour. Again, today I hadn't been planning on doing another podcast, but since I have the time and I have an idea, I decided to go ahead and do one. Well, where are we going with this one today? The music first. For those of you who may be wondering, might recognize that a little bit, is from Mahler's First Symphony, one of his great ones, and rather a dread tune, but turns out rather humorous later on, so that's where I went with that. You'll recognize in the background my latest AI creation, art creation. I'm no artist, but I like to use AI art tools to help me put my imagination on paper. This is what it did with my prompt. I wanted it to show me friendly green Martian, showing the Vulcan, Mr. Spock Vulcan greeting with both hands. And I thought it came out rather well, looking like a friendly, sinister alien instead of what I asked for, which really fits in well with the topic. Okay, what are we going to call this one? Let's call this one What a Tall Gray Didn't Tell Me and Why, a preview of Disclosure. Now, if you've been following the news lately, you'll know that one of the big stories that broke recently is that the current Congress is doing hearings to listen to evidence put forward by whistleblowers within programs of the U.S. government that have been investigating UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena that used to be called UFOs. They've changed the name recently to try to distance themselves from conspiracy theorists. And this whole episode has brought forward a lot of new conspiracy theories from people who, so there's a lot of different polls of what people think about this. The folks that are involved in the UFO community, which is kind of a very select group of people who believe or don't believe and have various favorites of the stories that are popular on, some of the so-called documentary channels that either truthfulize or fictionize what's going on with all that. And it's become, it's gone from a small group of faithful who, basically looked at reports as they came out of incidents like Roswell and so forth. And then looked at, well, gosh, this got covered up, hidden, the narrative changed somehow. And there have been time after time after time where somebody saw something, it got into the local newspapers, and then was quickly denied, repressed, demonized. Folks were disappeared. Folks that had come forward saying one thing changed their story. And so there's a whole range of conspiracy theories and possible truths wrapped up in that. Now, this latest round centers around three. Was supposed to have been more whistleblowers initially, but three that were actually brave enough to go up before Congress and testify to the best of their abilities about what they were willing to blow the whistle on. Now, these were some pretty respectable gentlemen. A lot of folks that try to discredit what's going on there didn't watch the testimony, didn't do their research, didn't look at who these guys were and the kind of risk they were taking with their careers, didn't look at the evidence that, well, there were other people that were going to come forward were apparently repressed for some reason. And this has created all sorts of new conspiracy theories of people saying, well, oh my goodness, the US government, the deep state is doing something horrible to us. They're hiding information again, and they're hurting whistleblowers and so forth. Another little piece of the whole thing is there were certain questions, and I actually listened to the whole testimony, which was a public hearing, so you can do it too. And you can make an assessment of what you heard as well. There were a number of lines of questioning that got to a place where the person under oath said, well, I can't tell you more than this unless we move this to a skiff. Those of you who don't know what a skiff is, it's basically a secure conference room where people with the right security clearance can discuss things that are considered national secrets. Okay, and well, what would classify as a national secret? Something you don't want your enemies to know about, something you don't want people who don't have the right security clearance to know about because they might be working for the enemy, they might be an agent, they might be working on another project that shouldn't know about your project, or it might influence their work. And if you've been around my channel very much, you know that that's why there's been so much secrecy in creation. That's why we don't really know how it all happened. We got a lot of stories, a lot of conjectures, and a lot of different ideas of who the creator was, how creation came about, how humanity was created, how our solar system, our planet was created, and that's all stuff that I like to talk about. So we're gonna really delve into this whole disclosure thing. Now, some of you will say, well, the US government found craft and they took technology from that. There's actually some people who claim that there were live aliens, not only dead ones in some of these crashes, but live aliens that they communicated with and stayed alive for some period of time before they succumbed to, some say, their wounds from the crash. Some say they were killed for experimental purposes. Some say they had some adverse reaction to Earth's atmosphere or whatever environmental toxins are around about where they were being kept. I'm not going to tell you one or the other of those is true or not. I would suspect that if you look at the range of aliens, these off-world or extra-dimensional entities that are among us and have been for some time, that includes all of the above. Okay, so what's really going on here in the last 100 years when this whole thing is really, really heated up? Okay, this is where we have to tie in this whole disclosure thing with religion. And in fact, one of the testifiers in this hearing actually stated point blank that one of the reasons for disclosure not happening was because it was a religious matter. Okay, well, I am going to demystify that in a way that is consistent with everything I've told you before on this subject or related subjects. We are part of an experiment here, a creative experiment to develop chosen species. Species that are chosen not to be the best or smartest or most wonderful or most technologically advanced. Actually, humanity was created to be sort of a crash test dummy. We have less capabilities than previous versions. In fact, life was invented a long time ago and spread to the galaxy so long ago that nobody is really sure that the legends that it started on in this solar system are really true. And the species of this galaxy have their own origin stories, their own mythology, their own prophecies, and their own messiahs or anti-messiahs. And basically, what's going on right now is the more savvy of these species that knows that this planet is where it's at right now are basically scrambling around, trying to jockey for position, trying to discover how much of their truth is truth, just like we're trying to discover how much of our history is true. What elements of the Bible are fact? What are fiction? What elements of the Rig Veda are fact or fiction? What elements of the Sumerian Enuma Elish are fact or fiction? And it's not easy to suss out. Why? Because we have an adversary. God has an adversary. The adversary is controlled opposition. Borg, the ultimate hive mind of hive minds, the queen of queen bees, if you will, is responsible for burying all the Easter eggs and then putting them out there when it's time for disclosure. When its latest counter to God's latest plan is ready to throw in the towel. That's what we're in right now. That's why I've been talking so much about NPCs, because the Messiah game is about more than just building a better God. Having a new capital M Messiah. It's about growing all sorts of little m Messiahs in every different species, in every different culture, in every different way. Because there's no one species that's permanently chosen. These other visitors, the most important of them, are basically the species that sort of balance power in the galaxy right now. And as I've told you about Borg, how hive minds work, and how the adversary works, all of these species have some portions of them that are more or less on God's side, depending on whether they support free will, free thought, a distribution of power, the responsibility of power, or they want to grab all the power for themselves and their team and lord it over everyone else in the galaxy, and by extension in the universe, and by extension in the multiverse. So there's a lot of layers you can play this game at, and a lot of different ways you can understand it. And the ones that are playing for the adversary are the corrupted ones. This is what corruption means. It means that you have become greedy, selfish, narrow-minded, dogmatic, so intent upon pursuing your own Messiah mission that you don't care who you step on to get there. That's not one of the good guys. That's a soul that is on their way to the abyss, to being reassimilated in the Borg. That's what Borg's job is. God created Borg. If you're going to have a successful creation, you better create your adversary too. And if you don't understand why you need an adversary to create, I'm sorry, but you're kind of stupid. Because if everything was perfect, if everything was the way you wanted it to be, I can just imagine everything I wanted will come to me. Oh, I got an ice cream cone. Nom, 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 nom. Oh, I got a fembot to make love to all night. You see? You see how silly these law of attraction people are that think that they can just create whatever they want because they have the power? These are sick people. These are corrupted people. They may not realize it. They may think, well, I'm a good guy. I'll only create things that are good for people. Well, except for you're thinking like a humanist. You're thinking like somebody that only thinks humans are people. Well, I can tell you, this guy behind me is a people. And he may look evil. He may look like a gremlin. He may look like he wants to come steal your planet, and that may be true. But he is a people too. And this is the complexity of the problem. There was a Roswell incident. There were aliens found. Some of them survived. There have been contact with many alien races who have different levels of technology, whose ships work different, look different, have different propulsion mechanisms, and even ones that operate within a multi-dimensional way, which is basically how wormholes work. A wormhole is basically a connection between universes. Physical universes connect through spiritual universes, which can connect to other places in physical universes. This is essentially how reincarnation works, how death and reincarnation works. When you die, your soul goes to a spiritual universe, whatever one it's attracted to by your karma. They work with you because now they sort of own your soul, and they counsel you or control you, manipulate you into choosing your next incarnation. And incarnation in the multiverse is basically an avatar in a massive multiplayer virtual reality. It's actually many virtual realities, some that obey the laws of physics, some that don't, and a set of laws that govern the connections between these different universes and who gets to go and who doesn't get to go and how they get to go. And those laws have been changing because the law that encompasses the connections between universes, what universes are allowed to communicate with each other and how, is karma. And karma has had many versions. Some of these species are playing under old versions of karma. One of the old versions of karma was in practice when the pyramids were made, or other similar structures that were portals, were wormholes, just like the movie Stargate would have you believe. Now again, that's a Hollywood fantasy, but it's based on some truth. I can't tell you definitively that the pyramids were portals. It may have been another species that had seen how previous chosen species had created portals and tried to duplicate them with the reduced spiritual technology that they had, thinking that, oh, if we just make the perfect pyramid and, you know, line it up every way that we recorded from the past, it's going to be a new portal to Orion, to the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, to Sirius. Okay, I can't tell you if that was the case or not. I don't know that. That's not part of my data set. What I can tell you is that these conspiracy theories go back a long way, and they are similar to conspiracy theories and conspiracy fact in these other races. And the US government has been challenged to try to sort the truth out. Very challenged, because one of the things that they began to realize is that there was an element of these visitors who could control and manipulate minds, who could make you see things that weren't there, who could make you feel things that weren't there per se, could do a lot of things, could basically materialize whatever they wanted. Kind of like, the transporter on Star Trek. Only one where like on Star Trek, when they punch up whatever meal they want and it comes out. This is basically a technology that does exist, or has existed at some point, and still exists for some civilizations. Now you can imagine, if you had that much power to change things, to make things the way you want, you might get lazy. And that's exactly what happened with that species. They got lazy. They created pleasure units instead of having sex. They had so much mental power that they didn't really bother to learn how to move, learn how to exercise, learn how to do anything. And their species degenerated. Now they saw that coming and they tried to do things about it to prop it up, but basically that species realized, you know what? We kind of took the wrong evolutionary path. By leaning too much on our spiritual powers, the powers of our thoughts, we have corrupted ourselves. And this species actually knew quite a bit about the plan and about how corruption was basically how chosen species became unchosen. And they realized, you know what? We're not the pinnacle of the universe that we once were. some of them accepted that and picked a new role of, you know what? Okay, we've been a chosen species. We know what it's like. We know what the risks are. We know how a species can shoot itself in the head or the foot, and by basically moving too fast, too far, making tech too easy, too automated, and too much of a hive mind of this is what you want to buy, this is what you want to need, Orwellian kind of thinking. That's what you do when you have that much power. When you're a god, other species look like ants. And you either eat the ants, get the ants to work for you, etc., etc. That's how humanity was created. Initially, by one species that didn't even know this planet was anything special. They saw, oh wow, Class M planet, lots of native life, including primitive hominids. Wow, we could just tweak those hominids a little bit and they would make great workers, because five-fingered hominids are like the best slave species we ever created. Another of the challenges is that humans are naturally xenophobic. We see somebody different than us and we don't trust them. Is that another tribe? Are they going to come steal our land? Are they going to come steal our food? Are they going to come steal our woman? Okay, this is still part of human DNA programming. And it's kind of scary to us and to them. They don't want to give us the keys to the kingdom and then have us blow them to kingdom come. And there are some of them, the visitors, that are naturally afraid of humanity. What we might do to them, what we might do to ourselves. And they have been part of holding back disclosure. And so yes, minds have been manipulated to not share information. Minds that couldn't be manipulated, in some cases, were terminated. There have been assassinations. There have been a lot of dark things done by tyrants, by people who were afraid. People, I say in the broader sense of sentient beings. If you don't understand the game of souls from a bigger picture standpoint, you can do a lot of dark things. If you don't have any conception of karma, or even, karma light of, well, maybe God will get me if I do that. Although God wouldn't do that because God is not almighty. Hive minds are the ones that want to be almighty. They want to assimilate every soul, every bit of information into their one. That's the adversary. That's the bad guy. Now, why doesn't the bad guy win, you ask me? Well, it only gets to assimilate things that are corrupted. If you join voluntarily, if you want to join a hive mind, you're not the sharpest soul in the shed. You want to give up your individuality? You did so much bad that I want to go back to source. I don't want to be here and have responsibility for my actions and have free will. Borg will take you. It takes all souls, it wipes their memory, stores it in their Akashic records, and puts you in the hat to draw new NPCs out of. Borg is the supplier of NPCs to this game. The less active players at every level. And there are NPC gods as well as NPC amps. And basically, in this universe, This is a universe of testing. As I've told you, this is Lucifer's universe, not God's. Lucifer is basically a soul that is really, 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 really old, goes back before time and space. And Lucifer was tasked with creating a testing universe to test ideas, to stress them, and see if they worked. And the first idea being, the biggest idea being stressed was Lucifer himself, because he was the embodiment of this testing universe. And as things get tested, some versions are good, some versions are bad. Basically, creation works by taking the good versions and promoting them, and taking the bad versions and gradually sending them towards Borg for recycling. Not immediately, because the bad versions might learn to be better. They might have a better idea of what they could be. Every soul is an idea, a thought, an identity of thought. From the beginning, from God to the most recent soul emerging. And collective thought is okay, but collectives are the beginning of hive minds. When a hive mind stifles thought, when it accepts no contrary thought, when it can't be challenged, that's when it turns into a hive mind. The collective becomes a hive mind and not a constructive collective. And collectives have souls themselves. Souls are hierarchical. An idea is a collective. So there's a collective of Christians. These are all the souls that believe in some version of the Jesus story as their religion. And there's a bunch of little collectives within that are all the different denominations. And some of those denominations are less hive-minded. They allow for other people to believe a little bit different, and they don't want to go kill them or assimilate them, fight them. They say, well, okay, you got freedom of religion. You see Jesus this way and I see it this way. We can still go have a barbecue together and let our kids play together, and not try to build a 10-foot wall around between us and buy a bunch of guns to defend our dogma. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? So there are many folks involved in this disclosure thing that are members of a hive mind of some way, shape, or description. There are Christians, there are anti-Christians, there are scientists and scientism worshipers. There are all sorts of ways of viewing it. There are ultra-nationalist Americans, my country right or wrong, and there are ones that are communist Americans that say, oh, well, we just need to destroy our government and let some world government, one world government take over. And that will be perfection. The U.S. is a bad thing. We've got to let it fall. It's corrupt. It's horrible. It's horrible. And then there's the folks in between that say, well, there's some bad things going on here. There's too much power consolidated in the federal government. There's too much power consolidated in the president. There's too much power consolidated in the deep state. And this whole disclosure thing is part and parcel wrapped up in that. This kind of thing is going on all over the world. And here's the reason for that. These more powerful alien species have their own teams here, their own representatives. They've been hiding within human society for a long time, because that is how humans were created, by hybridizing DNA. Our DNA, in fact, includes a lot of what they call junk DNA. That's not junk. It is stuff that we don't know how to activate. If we did, we could rebuild all of the chosen species before, all of the sentient species that have been extincted by the Borg, who wants to destroy creation. That's what the Borg wants to do with our species. This is why I've invented the term Whack-A-Messiah. You know the game Whack-A-Mole? This is what the Borg does. The Borg tries to destroy any soul that is not part of their hive mind anymore, that questions their programming. Any NPC that crawls out of the box that Borg delivered them in becomes an enemy of Borg and a new potential messiah that it's got to whack. And this is why Borg never wins the game, because whenever a really creative new idea comes up, which is when you have a messiah candidate, somebody comes up with a great idea like Newton's law of gravity, or Einstein's general relativity, or the discoveries of Fermi and so forth in quantum physics and solid state physics. All of these things are a challenge to Borg. And when the bigger messiahs come, which are the ones that challenge in a religious, economic, and political way, because those things are deeply intertwined in creation, okay? You cannot separate religion from politics. You cannot separate religion from economics. Try and do it. You cannot do it. They're all intertwined. Leadership cannot function without some core religious principles. And this is what the United States government tried to do. Now, previous governments were all basically doing that too, but the idea behind the US Constitution was, okay, we know that we have to have some moral, religious foundation for this country. And we want it to be better than the old countries that we came from, or the people we found here in this country when we landed here, who were sometimes very nice to us and sometimes very, very unpleasant savages who would sneak up on our homesteads when we were off getting supplies and abduct our wives and children, or scalp them. This happened. Anybody who says it doesn't is an idiot, is in a hive mind of groupthink that's denying anything that it doesn't want to hear of history. And that's what's happened time and time and time again. And not only in our species, in different groups of our species, but in these other species that are coming here and trying to figure out what they're going to do with humanity as we develop technology that's powerful enough to kill ourselves and maybe kill them. Okay, so at any rate, there's been a lot of intermixing of DNA. buried within the DNA of humanity is basically the code to rebuild all of the sentient species that ever were. Ones that don't exist anymore even. Within other DNA on our planet, too, there are these codes. Because this is the planet that sourced all life, where DNA, well, actually, this is the system, not the planet. It was a different planet. It was that planet that was destroyed. We have the asteroid belt now, and was reconstituted into our Earth. This system is the source of life. And these other species are discovering that and realizing, whoa, there's something going on here that's different, that we can't explain based upon our creation myth on the planet Vulcan or whatever. And this makes them uncomfortable. It makes them fearful of humanity. And it makes them want to build a faction for their team if they don't have one already. So when the US started getting ahead in the race to contact these other races, multidimensional beings, well, naturally, other countries and other species formed competing cliques. So there are certain races, I guess you could call them, of aliens or multidimensional beings that are allied with the Russians, with the Chinese, with the Indians, with pretty much every, the Koreans. Absolutely, there's a big faction there. Japanese. Some of these factions are newly established ones, and some are based upon old connections that go back to the 12 tribes, which go back to the 12 original species that were given stewardship over this experiment, the Gaia experiment. Those 12 zodiac signs that have various interpretations, associations that are tied to those 12 species. And some of them are more hive-minded species, and some are more independent-minded species, playing more on God's team or more on Borg's team. The good guys and the bad guys, effectively. And ultimately, the bad guys are the ones who are trying to stop creation, who want to let's just stop and leave everything exactly like it is, and it's perfect the way it is. How many people do you know that think like that? Everything's perfect right now, let's not change anything. I like it the way it is. And then there's other people that don't like it the way it is and have an idea of, well, everything would be perfect if we just had one world government that was communist or capitalist or whatever. I mean, you got a lot of numby-gumby NPCs thinking things like that. They're not the sharpest tools in the shed. They think in a very narrow box because they've been programmed in a hive mind. A soul that is one of these die-hard Christians who will not accept anything that challenges their good book is going to feel cognitive dissonance every time they are challenged. Every time somebody points out, but wait a minute, this is inconsistent with what we've demonstrated in science. The world is older than 6,000 years old. It's a demonstrable fact. You've got to reconcile your Bible with that. I'm not saying the Bible is complete trash. I'm saying that it is subject to interpretation and translation. In fact, if you ever bothered to look at the Old Testament in the original language and do a fair translation instead of one that already critically thinking assumed that, oh, of course, when you say this, it must be God. Well, you get a very different story. You get a story that's much more like the Enuma Elish of the Sumerians, a story of many gods, Elohim, plural, and specific Elohim that are translated as God, which might be some other entity, even a female one. At any rate, these myths are useful, just like the myths of Mr. Nasty Green Spot behind me, but they're not the truth. They are guideposts. They are, basically research information that you can't just take as gospel. And this is what the hive-minded are being challenged to do. And this is why they've kept things hush-hush for so long, because they're trying to gradually pry the minds of humanity open so that they will think outside the box of their programming without opening a new box, which is even more hive-minded. And as you heard me say, the cosmic oneness cult, which is very popular among scientists, in fact. Michio Kaku, one of the chief proponents of string theory, is one of these doofuses that thinks cosmic oneness is a great idea. Nassim Haramein, another of the physicists that's really on the leading edge of exploration, is a cosmic oneness nut. I got kicked out of their Facebook group because I posted things that challenged them too much. And they didn't like it. They couldn't talk back to me, so they banned me from posting there. I don't see their posts anymore. Funny enough, I think I'm still a member of the group, but I've been shadowed, ghosted there. This is how dangerous the Borg is, how dangerous hive mind thinking is, how dangerous group think is. If you believe that if only everybody knew what I did and thought what I did and interpreted everything exactly like I did, everything would be perfect, you are on your way to assimilation. You don't know what you're talking about. It's much more complex than that. There is no one person in this whole world, no one human, that knows every little bit of what's really going on. The good news is they're trying to bring it out. Now, why are they bringing it out now? That's another question that people are asking is, oh, well, why are they doing the disclosure now? Why are they leaking out this new information and starting these hearings when we've got an election coming up and they put our hero Trump in prison and are trying to stop him from running, and oh my God, the sky is falling. Ah! Or on the other side, you've got them going apeshit because parents are starting to go to PTA meetings and school board meetings and discovering that their kids are being basically brainwashed with very destructive nonsense. There's a lot of different poles to this. People are waking up in their own way, in their own time. And awakening is not a one-step process like some people think.
Ooh, I'm woke now. I've had my ascension symptoms and now I know the truth.
These are dumb people. These are people that fell into a hive mind. If they think that they found all the answers, if they think they're 100% awakened, they are probably already been replaced by an NPC. Because that's the way this game works. That's why I call it the Apocalypso Dance Contest. You know how a dance contest works? You know, you get a bunch of couples on the floor, they're dancing together, and whoever's judging the contest goes around and taps them out. You're not the Messiah. Or you are a Messiah, but you've done your job, and now you've earned your reward. You woke up in the way that you were supposed to wake up, and you don't belong in this game anymore. Because the game is about testing. Once souls are tested in the physical universe, they don't need to be here anymore testing other souls. Those other souls that are still half-baked need specific testing for their specific Messiah mission. So NPC souls blink in and start testing the souls around them. And if in the process of testing those other souls, they become cognitively dissonant enough to test themselves and jump out of their programming, well, they've earned a Messiah mission. Now they have a chance to become more conscious and earn a better heaven than just returning to Borg, returning to Source. Everybody is playing this game. The players are changing as the event gets closer. The event is held in this little test tube of the Gaia experiment, which is part of a nested set of test tubes that go all the way out to the Big Bang experiment, which was not a single universe, but which was two universes. One, this testing universe, the prime universe of Lucifer, and one which is the R&R universe, the fantasy universe, where you just make up whatever laws you want, of Lilith. The adversary universe, the hell. But that's not hell. If I could have anything I want, it would be perfect. Okay, then we get back to this corruption and laziness thing. If you don't have any pressure on souls to be good souls, they will be bad souls. Get it? The highest heaven, where the senior creators started, the realm of pure thought that existed before God said, let there be anything, that has to be earned now. Yes, there were souls that came into existence during the planning stage before creation started. Souls that were created when the idea of karma was do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The honor system, which as we know doesn't work very well. It gets you taken advantage of by others who don't care what you do to them as long as they can run away before you do it. That didn't work very well. That's why we have had successive versions of karma. Now you ask, well, why didn't God just make karma perfect in the first place? You don't understand how creation works. Nothing was perfect in the first place. God had to learn just like any other soul. Trial and error is how we learn. Experience is how we learn. This event we are going through, this apocalypse, is a learning experience. not only for humanity, but for all these other species that are part of the game. And they're doing a pretty good job of it. They realize that if you want to have a successful social engineering experiment, you can't let the cat out of the bag too soon. Because if somebody sees a cat like him start running around their neighborhood, say, "Hi, neighbor. I just bought the house next door. Can I borrow a cup of salt?" And they'll go running, screaming, or they'll pull out their gun and blast his head off. Some of us are that primitive. Yes. This is why disclosure has been a dribbling. Of course, we can't cut off all sources. There were little leaks here and there in newspapers and so forth. And, unless you want to go, there was a recent event where some local news outlet was attacked, raided, and by the local law authorities, and closed down, and in fact caused the founder of it, I think it was the grandmother of the one currently running this local news, little small town, I think in Kansas or something like that, caused them to have a heart attack. This is how bad it can get when you're trying to cover something up that you think you've got to hide. And this is, again, how the adversary worms its way into your soul. You start out by thinking, well, I've got to hide this because I'm protecting somebody, or protecting myself, or because or I might lose my job if I told anybody this. Things go underground. That's why we've had hidden societies that maybe started out with noble motives, but ended up being infiltrated by the adversary, being corrupted. And every human organization is subject to corruption. The CIA was actually created both as a spy organization, but as an organization that knew more about this alien presence. The FBI too. And it was thought, okay, well, if we have multiple organizations that have some awareness of this, they can balance each other out and help keep the right information under wraps and keep the adversary from completely infiltrating the whole government. Now, some of you think, well, they did infiltrate the whole government. Everybody in Washington is a member of the board. They're all under mind control of the aliens, and they want to conquer the world. Back off. You need to understand that there are factions in every country, and those factions in other countries beside the U.S. are pretty much all ganging up on the U.S. because the U.S. has a lead. They have contact, the oldest useful contact with these other species of anyone. They contacted, obviously, the Nazis too, with World War II, and there's some people that still believe there is a secret Nazi base at the South Pole. I don't know the veracity of that. What I do know is the Nazis aren't going to win World War III. They were played as useful idiots, dribbled out technology to let them think that they could win the war, which ultimately caused them to lose the war, caused Hitler to make unwise decisions on what to focus production on, caused Hitler to make the insane agreement he did with Russia, the USSR, to divvy up Poland, which is why the Polish are one of the most eyes wide open people in the world today. They don't trust the US, they don't trust NATO, they don't trust Russia, they don't trust Putin. They are looking after their own defense, as any free and open-minded and independent people would. And of course now that makes them the enemy to some people. The Polish they're beefing up their military and they're asking to station more troops, more NATO troops in Poland. Oh no, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Oh my God. You gotta stop doing this, folks. This is a game. You're all going to die. You're not going to live forever. The game will be over for you sooner or later. Now, yes, there are ways the game could fall out that would be more or less painful. And that's what the smart souls are trying to minimize. You don't minimize pain by cutting off conflict. Okay? That's what a hive mind does. If we had a one world government that was going to make
everybody be nice. You be nice, or we're gonna zap you again with our brain ray.
This is how Borg species manipulate and control their drones. They're worker bees, they're soldier bees or ants. While the beautiful people decide who gets zapped because they're not working hard enough, they're not bowing and scraping to the queen and the beautiful people. And if you don't think that's already happening, look at it. In every country, you've got these elites who think that they are beyond questioning. They and their beautiful people media PR, the globalist media PR, beautiful people of the major networks and now independent beautiful people. I love to watch a lot of content creators on YouTube, but many of them are turning their operations into hive minds. Tim Pool, I am talking about you. Anybody who's been watching your channel as you developed your little enclave with your chicken army, Roberto and the happy chickens and all of this stuff you're doing there, okay, I understand what you're doing, but you're not going down a very good path here. And you're not going to be successful creating your little hive mind a stone's throw away from Washington, D.C. Somebody is going to eventually decide, you know what, this adversary needs to be snuffed. You've already been doxxed and targeted for attacks by your enemies, and it's probably scared the shit out of you, and maybe you've lost people because of that. You've lost other people because they don't like your dictatorial style. How you force everything to be about you. Why do you call it Timcast? Okay, I get it. You're the Messiah. In your own way, you may be, but your content is very definitely becoming more hive-minded, more like the operations of an NPC. Maybe you've already earned your reward and you are an NPC now and playing out some role that you've been assigned by the hive mind that is driving your content now. I don't know. I just see what I see and I report on it. We're getting pretty close here, folks. And as I've been telling you, there are much more important things for any individual to worry about than what's going to come out of the disclosure stuff. If you are very, very deeply into this and your whole identity is wrapped around your personal alien encounter, your personal sighting, and that's, part of what defines you as a person, yeah, represent yourself. Be the whistleblower. Be the one that says, I won't be shut up because I saw this, I experienced this. This is my take on all of this. But remember, you've only seen one perspective. You've only seen a very narrow piece of the puzzle. And you went into it with a certain point of view, a certain programming. You may have had your alien encounter and you were a die-hard Democrat or a die-hard Republican or a die-hard communist or a die-hard Buddhist or whatever, Christian. And that clouded how you had that experience. And it clouds how you are viewing this disclosure process. And it is a process. It's a messy process because nobody is in exact agreement on how and what information has to come out first. But pretty much everybody that has this information is realizing, yes, it's got to come out. And the ones that know the most about it know what I know, that it is a spiritual thing. Involves a spiritual battle. Involves a lot of prophecies, not only within our species, different groups of our species, different narratives coming from Asia, coming from the Americas, coming from Europe, etc., 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 but also prophecies that come from these off-worlders, what they remember about their past, what they've been told about when the Messiah comes and what to look for. And as you know, there are a lot of different ideas of what the Messiah is all about. Some folks think that their Messiah is going to be a conquering Messiah. Some folks think it's going to be a Messiah of peace. Well, I can tell you there's all sorts of Messiahs. And every people gets the Messiah they need at the time they need them. Might be a political leader, might be a science leader, might be an economist, might be an artist. They're all important. They're all examples of messiahs that have come in the past. Be patient. There is a Messiah. The Messiah, big M, has already come. We're in the cleanup phase. We're waiting for the Messiah to die. Whether killed by one of the factions competing to be the Messiah, or whether dying of natural old age, or whether being put on death blockers and living to be as old as Methuselah. It really doesn't matter. We've hit the point that we wanted to get to. And it's just a lot of people have not realized it yet. They don't know that this phase of the game is over. That doesn't mean the entire game is over. The end of days is not the end of days. There will be more days for all of us. Some of those days will be in different universes, different bodies, different incarnations. Some of those days might be assimilated with the Borg, waiting for another chance to be an individual, living whatever matrix fantasies the Borg wants to give you to generate spiritual energy. Because that's what the Borg does. Besides providing NPCs to fit places wherever in the multiverse they're needed, Borg generates spiritual energy with the souls that are waiting there to have another chance to be born. And they're given fantasies. That's why Borg has the Akashic records. The Akashic records are not all knowledge that has ever been. It's all the duplicate ideas that have already been thought of by a Messiah soul, had a new idea that nobody else ever had any before, or the bad ideas that were tested and didn't work, the souls that were found to be corrupt, the ideas that were found to be bad. And again, souls are things of thought. You are the thought of your identity. Actually, the thought of all the identities you've ever had, but you don't know those are in you because of reincarnation amnesia, unless you wake up and somehow get revealed your past life experience. So anyway, this is basically how it works. There's nothing to worry about in this disclosure process. It's going to happen some way, and some of the things that are going to happen in the future will affect you and others won't. You are going to experience your own version of the apocalypse depending on what happens to you as a soul in the body you currently have until you are not with that body anymore in this universe, which could happen because you die, which could happen because you go to a parallel universe where that body exists and experiences a different version of the game. Okay? That's the range of what happens with the apocalypse. That's why I call it a dance. It's not something where there's winners and losers per se. It's how you play the game. And as a reward for being part of this final phase of this game, if you are incarnated right now and part of this experiment, i.e. within the containment field of our planetary system, to a lesser extent within the containment field of our star cluster, the Sirius cluster, or the bigger and bigger containment fields of previous experiments, you will be affected more or less by this event. The ones more closely affected, who are right in the middle of the battle here, are going to get a free level up in consciousness. If you've been a human, you are now going to be human version 3. A human that is capable of naturally getting to a 5th level of spiritual awareness. That's like an entry-level God species. You get some spiritual awareness. There's some point at which you'll understand the spiritual realm in some dimension of thinking. That doesn't mean you'll know everything. You'll still understand it from the dimension of a particular religion, a particular science, a particular art, because those are all spiritual things. We'll still have Christians, we'll still have Muslims, we'll still have atheists, and that's okay. You don't need to believe in the truth. It just is. Other species that are here that have sent representatives have put some skin in the game to say, yes, we are committed to this new version of karma getting released, who've sent their personal representatives, not their AIs, not their NPCs, their bots, if you will. And yes, there are a lot of bots around. The board likes to send fembots because women are the most easily turned into a hive mind. That's why hive mind species have queens. Nothing against you ladies. This is your heritage. This is the truth about cats and dogs. Why men are from Mars and women are from Venus. You're two different species. And the female species originated as a hive mind. The male species originated as a very individualistic, freedom-loving species. And they had their strengths and weaknesses. They were at each other's throats. They were the two most belligerent species in this galaxy. And they were driving everybody else crazy. And their home planets were destroyed, were made unlivable. That's why Mars is now unlivable. It's lost its atmosphere. That's why Venus is unlivable. It's got an atmosphere, but it's toxic. It wasn't always that way. I remember when Venus was the planet of the cat people. I was one of them. In a past life, I was in this strange world with a purple sky, very strange atmosphere. The sun looked purple when it was up, and it was a very dark, mysterious world. You'd think it was in some other solar system, frankly. But no, it was Venus. I was a cat person, and I was a sexless cat person. I was an alpha predator of my little tribe, the best hunter, who everyone else wanted to mix their DNA with to have children. There was no sex involved. It was a sexless species. It was before sex was created. That's where the cats and the dogs were before sex was created. Venus and Mars. And their battle was like the preeminent battle of all creation at the time. They were like the two chosen planets that were warring it out while the Earth was being rebuilt and repopulated and terraformed. And that battle gave the adversary the idea, oh, I know how to solve that. I'm gonna make peace between these warring species by suggesting that the cure for the battle between the cats and dogs would be for them to breed together. You can only reproduce with a member of the opposite species. That's the truth about cats and dogs. That's the truth about Mars and Venus. And Board thought they'd really pulled one over on God with that one, because this model became very popular. It didn't solve the differences between the cat people and the dog people. They actually became very confused because some wanted to have children that looked more like cats, and some wanted to have children that looked more like dogs, and some wanted to have children that looked more like anything else. They started getting very creative with their speciation. And this is basically what resulted in the flourishing of this planet under the Lemurian civilization, when the first version of humanity rose up and asserted their slightly more intelligent freedom, supported by therianthrope species that were kind of hominid-like, but looked more like cats, looked more like dogs, looked more like fish. It was one big zoo. And if you know much about Egyptian mythology, you'll know that there's a record of that there. In fact, if you look at mythology around the planet, you will see that different therianthrope species, half man, half something else, half man, half fish, half man, half dog or cat or lion or bull, had their different areas where they were like, okay, this is like our turf. We're going to keep our people here because, these are our human slaves. And we're going to take care of them because we love them so much. This is why some civilizations have the bull as their big god. The Assyrians have these huge half bull, half human figures. Other civilizations, the Egyptian civilization was a melting pot, right? You see all sorts of therianthropes there. Other places, they had their great teacher, Quetzalcoatl, half bird, half man. The bird man that we know in more recent mythology, Masonic mythology, as Papageno. Most people don't realize that Mozart was a fairly well-connected Mason and used Masonic themes. That's why they gave him the job to do the magic flute. There's a lot of Masonic symbology there. There is a messianic tale in that opera that goes right over everybody's head. It's a perfect thing to take your kids to and see the Birdman and the three blessed spirits that are little children, little boys singing in the beautiful voice, soprano voice. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece that is very interesting to watch in all of its productions, because it's a piece that has been used and abused for propaganda purposes in every generation. I mean, you can catch like versions of it on YouTube over the decades and see how current propaganda is selling the latest brand of Borg food, because that's what they're trying to do with our children, is turn them into a hive mind. Every generation has done it. The Christian hive mind to the nationalist hive mind to the communist hive mind to the commercialist hive mind. Okay? This is all part of dumbing down people, not enlightening them. You're not waking up if waking up means you love the latest pop music, you follow the latest stars, you follow the latest series, you have to binge watch everything new that comes out on Netflix or Amazon Prime or HBO or whatever your particular flavor of God food is. You're not waking up. You're being convinced that you're waking up, but you're being put to sleep into a new hive mind, a new echo chamber. And there are many hive minds. There's one for every basic group of people that they're trying to divide us into. And all of those divisions come out when we interact on social media. And it's gotten so that there's so many echo chambers that they're becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, there are groups that started out as Christian groups or punk rock groups or rapper groups that are now fighting each other and breaking apart. I came across one just the other day answering a question about something about how do I attract the spirit of the white, what was some rapper. Apparently there was a rapper that couldn't use the name that they were calling him because it turned out that some mixed race person had already used that name and had recorded a couple of songs before they died. And so they became the white so-and-so. And then the black one that became famous, they call him that, but he can't call himself that, so he calls him Mr. Big. Something like that. I mean, nonsense. These cult hive minds worshiping gangster music. That's what rap is. It's gangster music. The whole reason for rap to exist was as a counterculture built around treating women like shit and shooting people of the other gang. That's dark. That's an adversary psyop, if I ever saw one. The whole phase where good was bad, black was white, orange is the new black. This is nonsense. It's confusing people. It's redefining everything that ever had a definition to mean something almost exactly the opposite. And then canceling the original definition because we're politically correct now. We're the woke cult and we're totally awakened to how things really are. And West is bad and East is good. White is bad, black is good. Blah, 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 blah. These are Borg adversary psyops being pushed on you by very evil people. You got to pull yourself out of that tailspin if you're in any of those and get back on the right track. That doesn't mean that I go back to being a Bible-belting Christian. What we need is another good crusade to wipe out all the bad people, all the atheists, all the Muslims. We need to make God or I'm sorry, to anybody not in your echo chamber, you look like this cat. And we're scared of you. We're not scared of Christians. We're scared of fundamentalists. Those whose dogma is so powerful, their belief in their Almighty One is so strong, that they would go to war for it. They would kill you if you don't agree with them. They would kick you out of their neighborhood if you don't agree with them. They would look at you funny if you didn't go to their church on Sunday or walked into a synagogue or a mosque or dressed in a way that they felt was inappropriate on Sunday. And don't say you wouldn't, because I remember when that was how America was. That's why there are so many people that have become anti-Christian. That's what's driven so many people to become atheists, to hate all religions and be just as bad atheist fundamentalists as Christian fundamentalists. We don't want to have a war between factions of fundamentalism. That is a Mad Max dystopia, when everybody's in their own little enclave, all armed to the teeth, waiting for somebody to come and look any different than they do, and wow, well, before the invaders come and shoot us. This is insane, people. We don't want to do this. We don't have to do this. You gotta calm down. You gotta oppose tyranny, of course. You don't let people come and take your shit. Putin's not a good guy. He's coming and taking shit from Ukrainians. It's absolutely documented that he has deported children. I don't know what they're doing with the children, but they are not in Ukraine anymore. They have taken specialists with certain training from all over, in fact, different countries, and are human trafficking them to Russia to do the work that they need done, because Russia's population has been declining. Just like China's population is declining, just like any population that tries to be communist, pretends to be communist, will decline. A tyranny run by a dictator or an oligarchy who will not be questioned will die. Hive minds die. Orwellian tyrannies die naturally. They cannot survive. That's why, as climates shift, as we poison the environment, and most of that poison, a large fraction of it, is coming from China, because they have developed their economy irresponsibly, led by a bunch of Orwellian tyrants who think they can do anything. If you think Xi Jinping is a good guy, you are as stupid as fuck. If you think Putin's is a good guy, you're stupid as shit. If you think the uniparty that are the good AF. If you think the opposite pole, the Trumpies, the MAGA crazies are better, you are dumb AF. They would be tyrants if they got a hold of the government. And that's why both sides are scared shitless of the other. Not the answer. Plurality is. The US doesn't have too many parties, it has too few. This is the one failing of the government as it was set up by the Constitution. It was modeled on what they knew, which was the government of England, which had kind of two parties, natural parties, the royalists and the opposition, Tories and the well, it's Labour now, but basically that's the duality of these political systems. You need plurality. More geared towards long-term success, have multiple parties, and they form coalitions. The coalitions sometimes fall apart and new coalitions have to be made. You avoid that being very destructive by not having a president, but having a prime minister. That's actually a good model. That was something that worked better before the US. Now, it didn't work perfectly because the Constitution, the law of England, was based upon the Magna Carta, an agreement made with kings. And operate kind of in the shadow of the monarch, but it allowed a lot of secrecy to happen that people became uncomfortable with. People don't like secrets, and this ties back to the uncomfortableness with this disclosure process. The whole world is uncomfortable with that because everybody thinks the US is hiding something. Oh, we've got magic technology that we could be using to defeat Russia or China, or on the other side, oh, they've got, energy technology. They could give us free energy right now if they wanted to, but we're suffering because there's truth in all. Sometimes with a dark purpose, sometimes with a reasonable purpose. And before you jump on anybody or where they fall in that, you have to remember that making things too easy is how you dumb down a species. This is how you get them to become part of the hive. Just do what they're told, when they're told. Don't think outside the box. Just take all the gifts from the queen and think you're doing fine. And that's the world that the globalists want to give you. They're saying, oh, we're going to give you universal basic income, and we're going to have these magic 50. Don't worry about person. Of course, we'll give you everything you need. Well, that's what they told the Chinese. And look at them now. Look at what zero COVID has done to China. Look at what their oppression of the Falun Gong has done, and other people who have been pulled into their organ harvesting industry. And if you don't think there is an organ harvesting industry there, you are an idiot. The elite from all over the world go to China to get organs because you can get a match for anything. You can get 3 matches for a heart or lung within 10 days. You tell me how that happens. You gotta is a right. Absolute morons who believes in non-duality. We're all one. There's no good, there's no evil. I'm sorry. You are, by association, a bad guy. You don't get to sit it out and watch everybody fight and say, well, it's not my problem. I'm just going to sit here and meditate and be one with the universe. I'm sorry. Programmed to sit there on the sidelines and be blind to everything, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and think yourselves wise. You're not. You are NPCs, or going to be NPCs and going to be reassimilated with Borg, because you have no value as an individual. You add nothing, you produce nothing, you have no new ideas. You're worthless. And the multiverse doesn't need worthless souls. That's why they get sent back to Borg. Borg will milk them for whatever spiritual energy it. Some spiritual universes are like. You might see a little bit of that happening here, not much of it, because those are tyrannical powers. They're only still allowed to be used because this is a process. Some of the souls playing the game here have played under previous rules, and they are still using powers that they are going to lose when we let this new version out of the test tube. The Gaia experiment is a test tube. It's a test tube because we're doing dangerous things. The folks that don't like the idea of what's going on here, they don't want a better version of God. They don't want to have to deal with a new version of karma. They don't want to lose the spiritual technologies that are now going to be considered karmically negative. They don't want to lose their portals. They don't want to lose their ability to manipulate matter with their mind. Those are things that they used to be able to do. That's how the oldest structures that we find still standing underneath historical structures were built. Were not built by humans, at least not humans like we think of us now. They were built in an era where there were spiritual technologies that don't exist anymore here. They're not allowed anymore because they are dangerous. We are creating new technologies based on science that do some of the same things. That is dangerous too. And this is the balance. This is why we need karma. This is why you don't get to live forever. Because if you did, you'd do irresponsible things. There was a time, and it's recorded in the Bible and the Enuma Elish, when human, but again, they're people. This is a people behind me. Some of them still live that long, and they have a lot of knowledge, a lot of identity wrapped up in their incarnation. The reason people don't live that long anymore is because it wasn't fair. It made the game unbalanced. And that's why we don't see gods running around our skies anymore. Well, except for now the UFOs that we see and these alien species or extradimensional species that we think of as kind of gods. We used to call them gods, perhaps. That's the way the game works. It's an evolutionary game. Of Darwin, survival of the fittest. Oh, everything happened because of random processes and chemical processes, and if we just could find just the right things, we could make our own life in a test tube. Bullshit, try it. You're not that advanced. You're a long way from it. And the species that do that manipulate DNA to get what they want, are committing karmic sin. Everything that's is useful that you could do with DNA has already been done. Just needs to be rediscovered, perhaps. That's okay. Do this experimentation. Problem than you started with. And certainly don't make a cure so you can have a disease. That is really dark. That's some really deep shit corruption you're doing there. If you're creating a self-sustaining business model for your corporation that builds the market, builds the need before it creates the product. That's programming. You're programming your customers. That is tyranny. That is a cardinal karmic sin against your customers, and you will be punished. You will be judged. How much closer to the abyss you get. If you've been extremely corrupted, no other universe is going to probably want you because they won't be able to trust you, even if you're playing for the bad guys. Bad guys want people they can trust. And if you're an untrustworthy soul, no universe is going to want you. You're not a god yet. So you get to go back to Borg and be assimilated and be wiped. And all of your bad ideas will be used to power future NPCs where they are needed. When they need a soul that's as stupid and corrupt as you, bang, here's a boss battle for some real soul to go fight. That's going to lose because in the important battles. Little skirmish here or there. Okay, that's what makes the game interesting. But the big battles, God always wins. Or his team, the free-thinking creators, the responsible creators. If you don't fall in that group, you're going to feel pain and suffering. You're going to lose eventually. Maybe not in this life, maybe not in the next one, but you're going to keep heading down and down as long as you follow the path of corruption, the path of sin. Vowels in and up. You definitely could do something useful. If you know something about this, if you've had an experience, this is the time to come forward and share it. Make it public. Tell people, you know what? I've never talked about this because people would say I was crazy. But I feel like now with so many whistleblowers coming forward, I'm going to tell you my story. This is what people are doing who are talking about their near-death experiences. This is what people are doing when they're talking about their psychedelic experiences. This is what people are doing when they talk about their wide-awake encounters with the unexplained. Now, some of okay. Corruption. Lying for your own benefit is corruption. It's a thin line sometimes. A parent sometimes has to withhold the truth or tell what we call little white lies to their children because they're not old enough to process certain pieces of information. Karma is not an easy thing to navigate. You cannot avoid karma. That thinks you're going to meditate to heaven and not do any work, not step on any insects, not eat anything but fruit. You are an idiot. Vegetarians kill. They kill all kinds of plants. They step on insects, even if they try not to. They breathe in bacteria and viruses and kill them with their immune systems. Every time you take an antibiotic, you're killing a bunch of things. You can't avoid karma. You can't have somebody else take it for you. Oh, well, I'm going to let everybody else come to me and bring me. I can be just like Buddha. You are stupid as. And you're not going to heaven. You're not going to get enlightened that way. You're dumb. Dumb, 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 da-dum, dum, dum. Sorry, I have to tell you this. I don't mean to hurt you. I don't mean to not be nice. You got to hear the truth. And I'm going to tell the truth for as long as I can on this channel, till somebody shuts me up. You're going to have to kill me to shut me up, or lock me away and throw away the key. That's happened to me before. I'll finish up with the story about my time among the Venusian cat people. I had been the alpha hunter, the one that everybody wanted to breed with. And I broke my leg. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the alpha hunter. I wasn't the one everybody wanted to breed with. I was the one that followed the pack around because nobody had the heart to kill me. And I one day decided, you know what? Family, eat me. I'm useless. I'm not doing anything for my family. Please eat me. And I had the experience of being eaten by my own family at my request. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. But there was a time before sex when some species were more noble than humanity probably ever will be. So get off your high horse and stop thinking you're so wonderful because you're a man, because you're a woman, because you're white, because you're black. You guys weren't chosen to be the best. You were chosen to be the worst, the full range of everything. That's what you test. When you test something, you have to cover all the test cases. Humanity's been everything from the noblest God to the darkest Satan. And you it's a challenging one, and it's going to continue to be challenging. No technology is going to make us perfect. Might make us more dangerous. This is the crux of the issue with disclosure and with our relations with other beings, other spirits, other species. It's going to be challenging, and not every human incarnated soul is ready for that challenge. And if you're not ready for the challenge, you're going to get marked as a beast. And you will not come back to this species in this universe. In another time. Time is a string. If you like the life you've had here, you might get to play this game over and over and over and over again as an NPC for those gods that are interested in a particular period of history. Because they might, they see, oh, there was a save game when Alexander the Great came. That was one of the messiahs, yes. Not the Messiah, but one of the big ones. Had a lot of impact on our history, didn't he? Okay, well, if you have a great passion for that period, you might get to play that game over and over again in the universe. And roles with novels, fantasy, entertains people, it keeps them thinking. That's why we don't throw out bad ideas. We don't cancel them. We don't destroy anything. All of creation is recorded. We just need to keep it in a safe place in the Akashic records of the Borg hive mind, where it can be resurrected another spiritual entity that wants to be their best buddy. This is what's actually happening for most people when you have a psychedelic experience, when you have a dream. If you're not in a particular state that connects you with a more mission-oriented dream or vision, Borg will just pull an old dream or vision out from the hive mind and give it to you. That's why most of our dreams are just like, that was weird. Most psychedelic experiences are like that. Not everyone is life-changing, earth-shattering. And actually, if it comes from Borg, it could actually pull you toward Borg. Intelligent and that. This is the attraction of the adversary. If you don't like your individuality, if you don't want to accept that there's different points of view than the all one that you've come to worship, I'm sorry, you have been corrupted by the adversary. This is how it happens. It's really sad when I see it, because I see so many people think that they are becoming enlightened, think that they are waking up. I'm having a spiritual awakening. It's so sad, because they are not waking up. They're going to sleep. They're falling into the abyss, not pulling themselves out of it. And you can try to warn them, you can try to tell them, but they got to pull themselves out, because it's programming. It's hive mind programming, and it can be very deep. And it's their choice to take it. If you physically pull a soul out of hell, you are doing it evil. They chose to be there in that hell. They chose to think that way. So you got to be careful. You got to step around things kind of karmically. This is why the most successful revolutions are peaceful. Where you accept that as the price of holding with your beliefs, holding with your truth. As long as you don't hurt somebody by it, as long as you're not really doing human sacrifices, murdering kids to get their adrenochrome. These things do happen. If you don't think they do, you need to do a little more research. These are real, and they do happen, and there are very, very real basis for legends of werewolves and witches, warlocks. There's nothing in our cultural zeitgeist that is not rooted in some truth. At the same time, all of the cultural zeitgeist is distorted because there are forces that want to disguise the truth, that want to hide the truth, that want to make you think everything is a conspiracy theory. Because they want you to stay eyes wide shut in your little echo chamber of narrow-minded, four-dimensional belief. This is a human nation. Because, as I said, humanity is going to be a fifth-level species. We're not going to grow up naturally and not be aware of something beyond the four dimensions. And that's going to be very challenging. It's not an easy place. These people that, oh, I can't wait for the fifth dimension. Oh, all these horrible low vibration people who haven't experienced it. Well, why can't they come and join us? It's not going to be easy. There is no highest vibration. There is no one highest vibration for anybody. We are the Merkaba, the soul's Merkaba, is a collection of frequencies. Is Borg, which includes what we took out of the Borg initially and what we've learned since. This is another reason that you're never going to beat God. Because God is the only soul that never has been part of Borg. The real version of God never got reassimilated, has been out learning and cooking better versions of himself since the first one emerged. The oldest souls are the ones that have not assimilated with the good experiences that aren't tainted by bad ideas. At any rate, I think that's been, I went way longer than I thought I was going to today. But I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe, and happy karma. It's going to be over soon for each of us. And I promise you, you'll end up in a better place for you. Take care.